Hello, my name is Corey Tatz. Welcome to my presentation of Explorations of Masc4Masc, Dynamics in the Southeast USA. I'm a PhD student at Indiana University in Bloomington. So, social outcast. As a closeted bisexual teenage boy, growing up in the right-leaning suburb of Lawrenceville, Georgia in 2011, I did not seem to fit in with my peers. At times, I felt like a social outcast. My limited friend group consisted mostly of girls. One of them was Lizzie, who I quickly developed feelings for. We had been in the same French class for a couple of years and grew close, but she did not have any romantic feelings towards me. Lizzie wanted a guy's guy, and I was nowhere near as masculine as she would have liked. I was a typical theater kid, loudly flamboyant. Femininity in guys was considered a major weakness in Southern society. Those who failed to act sufficiently masculine were often othered for potentially being gay. Cultural theorist Cyan Nye notes that while women learn to lisp and totter in their walk, these mannerisms made me stand out and become a target at Grayson High School. This can be viewed as a matter of coding. There was a double standard at play. For women, these behaviors are essential ideals of like femininity, but for men, they're just deemed abnormal. I was ostracized for not fitting into this hyper masculine box. I talked with my hands. I sometimes walked with my hands at the side of my hip. I spoke at a rapid speed. Peers repeatedly felt it was necessary to establish my gayness because that one aspect of my personality is held to give me and explain the rest of my personality, according to film theorist Richard Dyer. These mannerisms affected the perception of my masculinity, and peers questioned my sexuality. I began to loathe myself as my very existence was called into question. This resulted in negative feelings towards myself. I found myself unable to fit within this heteronormative constructs of my school. Being an outcast became a way of life. Hegemonic masculinity. In the case of the US Southeast, hegemonic masculinity is embodied by white heterosexual or straight acting presenting men who tend to dominate over any marginalized group. They must assert power over those in their communities. Historically, in the South, being queer has been both feminine and weak. Being hetero-masculine has been the default. MSM, which stands for men who have sex with men, must find other MSM who are also masculine. If MSM hook up with or date more feminine men, they may feel less secure within the hegemonic culture of the South. People may start to question the nature of the relationship if both men are up to the standards of their masculinity. This is partly why MSM feel they must present as masculine. They must abide by Southern white societal norms. It is the culture in which they live that rewards those who follow traditional gender norms. MSM will feel more masculine if they find other men with similar physical, material, and attitudinal features. This can include adhering to a rebel, conservative, make America great again attitude, which makes them part of this insider group. Within this group, asserting one's masculine attributes is important, and being more masculine is usually code for acting straight and less gay. It is, of course, easier to maintain these appearances when relationships between men are presented as friendships rather than sexual or romantic. If MSM hook up with or date more feminine men, they may feel less secure within the hegemonic culture of the Southeast. People may start to question the nature of their relationship if both men are up to the same standards of masculinity. So in 2021 to 2002, I did a case study when I was at Memorial University of Newfoundland, where I was able to explore Masc4Masc men and its operation in online hookup culture. I began with this Grindr and Reddit case study in Metro Atlanta, setting out to survey around 40 men and interview 8 men between the ages of 18 and 50. By seeking men from different ethnicities and backgrounds, I aim to apply an intersectional lens to my study. I researched my hometown of Metro Atlanta specifically because of its diverse population and my familiarity with its ethnographic makeup. And as you can see there, most of the men I had got were also from Reddit. Okay, the meaning behind Masc4Masc. So during my case study, numerous men identified as fitting within this Masc4Masc label. Of the 8 men I interviewed, the vast majority saw a masculine man to have fun with. Kyle, who was a 27-year-old bisexual man from Tennessee, is one example. He notes that I'm mostly interested in more masculine guys. They don't necessarily have to be muscular, but at the very least, HWP, which stands for height, weight, proportional. I'm also into the twink body type, but not necessarily into the feminine mannerisms, Kyle said in 2021. If a man is too feminine presenting or not athletic enough, he does not fit the Masc4Masc mold. It creates a us masculine versus them feminine mentality. For some men, their preferences are more explicit than others, like Joey, who was a 45-year-old bisexual man from Alabama. He states, I don't like gay femmes at all. Masc for sure. And he also prefers their appearance to be natural, though, not shaved or stubby. Ensuring they remain in the upper echelons of this hierarchy allows Masc4Masc men to exercise power and status on these apps and websites. Again, Kyle exemplifies this when he seeks out a guy who sort of looks like me, a more masculine, straight presenting, or I guess a slight preference to white guys, but I would not say an exclusive preference by any stretch, Kyle said in 2021. But by having a white masculine man as a playmate, Kyle may be trying to keep his place in this heteropatriarchy. Now, the expectations of Masc4Masc men go beyond physical experience. They must also ask manly. A masculine man is expected to act straight. This includes speaking in a deep voice, playing and watching sports like football and basketball, beer drinking, because one must act and represent yourself in a way society expects a man should behave, as John Ursing reports. It's important. A Masc4Masc man does not appear to be queer. This is not only viewed as a feminine quality, but also ultimately a weakness. If a masculine presenting man has sexual intercourse with another masculine presenting man, he may be considered less gay due to the fact that his partner is also masculine and acts like a man. Luke, a 21-year-old bi man from Atlanta and Toronto, specifically seeks masculine presenting men. He's very particular about the type of man he's attracted to. They must be masked, hairy, my height, 6 feet or taller, he said in 2021. Throughout the interview, Luke had to reassure me that he is indeed very masculine. In fact, he says, I am very masculine. I play football as well, so it's kind of my thing. He tells me that he's very dominant, likes to be serviced, and is always the top. And although I may not be the most masculine person in my everyday life, I'm able to put on a masculine persona when I'm on these hookup apps. I use code switching to talk to other MSM and bro talk, essentially. When I'm online, I become Corey, the bro, Corey, the dude. When another man messages me on a hookup app, I can alter how I come across in response to their interests. When I'm in the Southeast, my Grindr name display is usually bi dude to display a certain level of masculinity. My first message to another MSM is usually, what's up, man? If I'm perceived as masculine or straight acting, my chances of a hookup are significantly increased, and it's much easier to act straight on an app or a website than in person. Thus, there are 2 parts to the script, the online script and the IRL, and real life script. I must present my masculinity in both types of scenarios. Fitting outside of this Masc4Masc realm. When I was in Canada, my doormate, Dortea, painted my nails bright pink and dark purple. So in the past, I would not have considered doing this because it's considered feminine. When I matched with a DL dude on Bumble, which is a dating app, I immediately thought that I might have to remove the nail polish because I would appear less masculine and more fruity or queer. I ended up asking my match if the nail polish was okay and if we were to hook up. I had to make sure that I was still masculine enough for him. I guess my beard may have helped. I didn't want to be labeled as gay, and gay often equated to femininity. This is why I usually attempted to act more straight. The gatekeeping of a masculinity and gender expression started well before I identified as a bisexual teenager. When I was a little boy, I liked feminine or girly products such as glitter, lip gloss, and nail polish. My grandmother told me that other kids would make fun of me for wearing anything that was considered to be for girls. And throughout my childhood in both South Florida and Metro Atlanta, I had trouble fitting in. I was bullied, I was considered this outcast, and as I grew older, I wanted to experience sex just like anyone else, and that meant appearing more masculine. I do feel like there are parts of myself that are masculine, but being in the Masc4Masc subculture means stripping away all feminine qualities. I grew up middle class, white, and cisgendered. I am therefore considered privileged in certain ways. So it's easy for me to mask feminine qualities and to try and present as solely masculine. Therefore, I'm still part of the cis heteropatriarchy, even though I am openly bisexual and queer. Political masc and femme attributes. There's also a binary when it comes to American politics. Republicans tend to be considered more masculine, where Democrats are considered to be more feminine, according to political scientist Nicholas J.G. Winter. Southern heritage, the rebel flag, and white hegemony all are attributes of Southern masculinity. But according to Winter, in my experience, I've looked down upon by white Georgia men for voting Democrat. My leftist views have feminized me just like my queerness, especially once I've moved outside the Metro Atlanta area. I've also felt myself to be an outsider, even as a Georgia resident. When participants in my survey were asked about their political views, quite a few voted for Donald Trump in the 2020 election. Joey voted Republican, was just like a normal thing, he said in 2021. Kyle explains, I am economically conservative and socially moderate to liberal depending on the issue. Mr. Survey, who's a 45-year-old from rural Alabama, agreed with the sentiment that he was doing better financially under Trump, so he didn't mind if he stayed there. When I asked Mr. Survey if his bisexual identity affected how he voted, he answered that it did not. LGBTQ rights and other social issues were not at the forefront for a lot of these men. Kyle even noted that if he did not vote for Trump, he would have voted for Kanye West and threw his vote away, as he lived in Tennessee, and he did not think his vote mattered since Tennessee is a red threshold state. However, he did note that other than Trump, he voted Democrat down the ballot, so it depended on the candidate. Ultimately, these MSM did not rely on LGBTQ plus rights because the heterotopia of bro culture already provided the space that they needed to exist within this community. Now, ultimately, men who seek to be part of this Masc4Masc culture want to stay on top of this masculine hierarchy. It's important for these men to be seen as hetero so they can continue to exert their authority. The more feminine one appears, the lower one is positioned on this hierarchy. On Grindr and similar apps, there's a constant need to proclaim one's masculinity, which is called masking, so they can control how their masculinity was perceived by others, according to Alexander Granath. This is why, when Masc4Masc men are looking for masculine partners, they seek other men who will assert the same level of hyper-masculinity. They wish to be able to have sex with other men while keeping up this masculine facade. This may be a case of internalized homophobia because femininity is equated with being gay, or may has to do with their sexual behavior than any particular identity. Whatever their reasons are, if their hookup cultures are also masculine, they will not become othered and viewed as less than heterosexuals. Being Masc4Masc is more than a subculture. It's a way of life for most MSM. Thank you so much.